And type 2 diabetes, think of all the people around the world with this explosion in type 2 diabetes, the fourth leading cause of death, the leading cause of blindness, of limb amputation, and kidney failure, all caused by visceral fat impregnating around muscle tissue and other cells of the body that interfere with absorption of glucose. And then you have the buildup of the fat preventing insulin from working, so the beta cells in the pancreas have to produce more insulin to get the sugar out of the bloodstream. And the beta cells have to do more insulin and more insulin and more insulin. So they fail with producing more insulin because they get pooped out. And they start producing normal amounts of insulin. But the sugars are now too high because the body needs more than normal amount of insulin. So what do doctors do? They give you more insulin. They give you drugs like Amaryl and glucophage or glyburide, which push the failing beta cells to push more insulin out, or give you more insulin, which causes you to gain more weight, to become more insulin resistant, to make the failing beta cells fail faster. More medications, more medical care, more death. That's what happened in the Accord study. These medications cause weight gain. They cause you to become more diabetics. The Accord study was stopped in 2008 because when they did this controlled trial, the people who were put into the group with more medical care, more diabetic specialists following their case so they can medicate them more appropriately to keep their sugars better controlled, those people with more drugs and more care were dying, getting more morbidity and mortality and more death. So the NIH had to stop the study because they showed that people with less medical care, with more poor glucose control, with worse glucose levels, were living longer than the people with good glucose levels. Does that mean that having a good glucose level is not good? No. It means that drugs to get good glucose levels are no good. You have to do it with exercise and diet. You have to earn it. You can't drug yourself into good health. Eggs and diabetes. And eggs are particularly unique in the field of animal products because egg yolks contain more cholesterol than any other food. And we're taught that the cholesterol from eggs is no harm because your body makes cholesterol from saturated fat, not from cholesterol. And the little extra cholesterol from eggs doesn't matter very much. That's not true. The cholesterol from eggs matters a lot. And it takes a lot of work for the body to get the cholesterol out of the bloodstream. And even 7 or more eggs a week in men increases the risk of developing diabetes by 58%, and in women, 77% more likely to develop diabetes for regular egg eaters, especially with overweight people. And diabetics who eat eggs are twice as likely to die. What's this nonsense that eggs are... They convince you with all this nonsensical data where the studies are rigged. And when you have people that are fragile and metabolically challenged and sick, we don't want to give them a diet high in white rice and white potato. It's not the ideal way to eat. We look at carbohydrates on a hierarchical scale of quality. Give people healthier carbohydrates if you have a choice. It's not true that a little bit of this or a little bit of that is still a little bit of extra stress you didn't need to have on a person whose body is breaking down and at risk. Why not optimize the nutrient levels? The studies show that when people switch from white rice or white flour and they move to whole grains, their risk of developing diabetes or reversing diabetes improves by 30%. But when people switch from white flour or white rice to beans, their risks go down by 60%. It's much more effective to go to more beans and less grains even when you have diabetes. But certainly, whole grains are much more protective than white potato. We are putting carbohydrates on a hierarchical scale of quality based on the amount of fiber, the amount of resistant starch, the glycemic effect of that food, the nutrients in that food, and let's pick the best food possible when people are metabolically challenged and are at high risk of having some medical condition. Are you following what I'm saying? We have a limited amount of calories to choose from. If you're sick, why not make the diet the best it can be? You don't want to make it second best. You want to make it first best. Do you agree? Beans, are the most favored carbohydrate source. And then we eat a lot of non-starchy vegetables, like eggplant and mushrooms and tomatoes and onions. And we eat a lot of green vegetables. And we eat the lower sugar fruits. And we eat nuts and seeds. And we overall lower the glycemic effect of the diet because these things do matter. They don't not matter. Everybody tells you nothing matters. Here's a study on diabetics which showed that 90% of them became non-diabetic within 6 months. Right? Their hemoglobin A1C mean came from 8.2 to 5.8, while the medications were being reduced and removed. Only one person in that study was left on glucophage. Everybody else was taking off all their medications. More greens, more beans, more nuts and seeds means less refined carbohydrates, but more high glycemic carbohydrate, which means less rice and less potato when you have more lower glycemic carbohydrates, and you improve the glycemic parameters of the diet and the metabolic parameters, and you encourage weight loss and encourage diabetes reversal. Here's Sandra. She had diabetes and migraines and palpitations and fatigue and sweating and high blood pressure and high cholesterol, and she lost a lot of weight. She went from 252 to 115. Look at her, 115. This is years that she's maintained this weight in great health. And how grateful she is. She's a great role model who's out there. Look at her, right? She has the superpowers. Because we don't need superpowers to fly through the air or super strength to bend steel with our bare hands. Because we're not being invaded by aliens from another planet. We're being invaded by these diseases that are killing our neighbors left and right. How many of people here have their neighbors and family members that have been shot by a bullet or stabbed by a knife right in their chest or their neck? Raise your hand. What? Nobody? And how many of you have friends and neighbors that have a heart attack, strokes, or cancer? Raise your hand. Right? That's a neighborhood you got to get out of. You don't want to live in anymore. That's a dangerous neighborhood. What are you doing there? You're crazy if you're living in that neighborhood. Get out right now. Because Sandra, she's an example. She has the superpowers to be the role model to help change her neighborhood and save the world. And you've got the superpowers to be role models and be examples, because as you make your body disease-proof, you become the role model to affect your friends, your families, and your communities. You follow me? David Polk, he lost 155 pounds in 1 year. Went from 330 to 175 in 1 year, resolving his diabetes. Wasn't too hard to get out of bed. He couldn't get out of bed. He was so depressed and anxious, and his diabetes was so bad. He weighed 330 pounds. Spent most of his days in bed with migraines, sleep apnea, on a sleep apnea machine with cramping in his leg, which he couldn't walk. He had skin boils and acne and skin tans and skin infections and brain fog. Whatever people have, they have all these diseases. They don't just have diabetes. They're really sick. His hemoglobin A1C was 11.4, and he didn't go on medication, right? Instead, he changed his diet. He lost his craving for unhealthy food. He says he liked eating green vegetables. He started craving them. He started enjoying this diet, and he watched his body transform with no diabetes, no depression, no skin rashes, no migraines. And the same thing happened to Tina. She lost 70 pounds and reversed her diabetes. Her hemoglobin A1C was also 11. She never was put on medication. She went to her doctor, and her doctor said, "You can't do this with diet. Your diabetes is too severe. Your hemoglobin A1C is 11. Your blood sugar is running 400. And she said, I want to try using Dr. Fuhrman's approach. And she brought him the book. And he said, OK, I'll just give you 6 weeks. Come back in 6 weeks. If your hemoglobin A1C is normal, I won't put you on medications. She came back in 6 weeks. And her hemoglobin A1C was 5.9. Listen, that's almost impossible. Let me explain why. The hemoglobin A1C measures a 3-month window of average hemoglobin. It was only 6 weeks. All the hemoglobin hasn't transferred over yet. She was still getting part of the hemoglobin levels when she had a hemoglobin of 11. The fact that it went normal in 6 weeks is an incredible. If it was 7.2 or 8.1, it would have been good enough from 11 to not need medication because it was going in the right direction. But she actually came in at 6 weeks with 5.9 because another couple of months later, her hemoglobin A1C, I think, was 5.2 or 5.3 even. It was really good. And she dropped, obviously, 70 pounds in 6 months, more than 10 pounds a month. Here's Howard. He's a doctor in my local hospital where I work in Flemington. He was an anesthesiologist who came to me because he had to quit medicine because he was feeling so sickly that undergoing surgery, he was feeling it wasn't safe because he was getting high and low blood sugars that was making him lose concentration while people are under the knife and he's controlling the anesthesia. You following me? He went from 100 units, when he started this program, he went from utilizing 100 units a day of insulin to utilizing about 25 to 26 units of insulin a day. 1/4 the amount of insulin, stopped his highs and lows, reduced his body fat. What I'm saying right now is type 1 diabetics have insulin resistance. They have some degree of type 2 diabetes mixed in with their type 1. And that's the part of it that kills them. Let me say that one more time. Type 1 diabetics are dying prematurely of heart attacks and leg amputations and strokes. And they're dying because they're overtreated with insulin, because they have insulin resistance, and the diabetologists are giving them as much insulin as they require to control their glucose, instead of fixing their insulin at a more reasonable biological level and telling them to control their diet so they don't require excessive amounts of insulin. This enables a type 1 diabetic to live to be a normal lifespan. And Howard is now an example of a doctor in great physical shape with a ripped stomach, right, a six-pack, and good health, back in his careers with no highs or lows, using a fixed amount of insulin. He doesn't have to keep finger sticking and adjusting it every day. He knows he sticks with the same amount of insulin every day because his diet stays the same. And whether he exercises or doesn't exercise, he doesn't get highs and lows. He can work in surgery all day, helping people, and continue with his career. Here's Carole. She dropped 120 pounds from 350, 2012, saw my show on PBS, and now weighs 120 pounds. Can you imagine going from 350 to 120? These people didn't just lose weight. They got to their ideal weight. Are you following the difference? They didn't just lose weight. They reached their ideal weight, and they stopped losing. Like Vivian, who had acute pancreatitis with the ALT levels of her liver above 500, and almost died in the hospital with a lipid, I think it was 5,000 actually. Anyway, she was told she needed to be on insulin and statins and other drugs for the rest of her life, which she found that she didn't have to be. She got rid of her high triglycerides, got rid of her abnormal liver function, got rid of her diabetes in the process. A Nutritarian diet is designed specifically with those foods to have dramatic anti-cancer effects. And when you have the anti-cancer foods, it facilitates the reversal of all the diseases we're talking about here today. Raw onions and scallions in the diet, cooked mushrooms every single day, raw cruciferous greens and cooked cruciferous greens too, cooked more moderately, some beans every day, some lower sugar fruits like berries, cherries, pomegranates, on a regular basis, citrus fruits, flax seeds, chia seeds. It gives you charge, and it puts you in charge of your health destiny. Look at my friend Emily, who lost 100 pounds in 1 year. Look at her skin on her face and how much younger she looks 1 year later. Looks like her mother on the right. These are untouched photos. These people look younger, they feel younger, and they are younger. They're biologically younger. 2 minutes to go. I managed to finish in the right time frame. There's the kitchen and living room of my retreat, looking out the window at the beautiful park where all the coyotes and rattlesnakes are. Hiking and biking in the park. They don't bother people, but in any case, beautiful view of the palm trees and the ocean. It's just such a relaxing, serene area. And of course, I want to mention my new book, Eat for Life, which is not out yet. It's available for pre-order on Amazon. And I encourage you to buy it to get all this new information and the updates in the scientific literature. Because if you buy the book on a pre-order, just to let you know, it helps me an extra amount because the bookstores and the airport stores and all the stores that carry the books base the purchase of those books, how many they buy and how they position in the store, based on the pre-orders on Amazon. And they get extra points, so the book gets better distribution across America if the pre-orders are higher. So it's beneficial to me for you to buy the book earlier rather than waiting till later to buy it. So if you buy it now while it's still on pre-order, you get it 3 weeks from now. And then we give you, by taking the fact that you ordered it and letting us know, we give you some beneficial materials at drfuhrman.com. We give you some extra benefits for pre-ordering it because it benefits me, obviously, for you to buy it now rather than a month from now. Eat for Life is my expected last book. Not writing more books after this. I need to take better care of my own health. Sleep more, relax more, and still work, but maybe not work through the day and night. You know what I mean? Thank you, everybody.